Hello everyone, we are Group 5 and our topic is data visualization, establishing your editorial thinking. This is our content.
Editorial thinking connects data work and design work. When we collected the data and portray the data visually to the audience, we need to explore it with editorial thinking. Editorial thinking based on three perspectives, which are angle, framing, and focus. We have a very large database, so we could not show all the data at once. So we need to select an angle. Of course, we can pick more than one angle to analyze if they are necessary. It is like a chart as being a photograph, and angle is the position we stay in. We sit down or stand up. We would have different scenes. Therefore, when we select the angle, we need to consider how to analyze and show the data on our hands. The key considerations are relevant and sufficient. For relevant, what does your intended audience want or need to know? What makes something relevant in your context? What do you want your audience to know? For sufficient, how many angles do you need? For example, there are 100 photos in the camera, and you want to share about your vacation. When we talked about vacation, we may think about sunshine, beach, coconut trees, beach chairs, etc. So, you only need to show the pictures of the beach, blue sky, and beach chair. The audience would understand your theme, and you do not need to show them all the things in your camera. Frame means vision. We have to judge what should be included or the criteria to be excluded, so that we can contribute to the refinement of angles that we have chosen before. We can consider whether to analyze all the categories or only select a small part. We can consider whether to analyze all the categories or only select a small part. We also consider calculating all the values or just counting the threshold value, and what period should be defined. Framing must provide the most significant content of data, but also need to avoid distorting or misleading. Therefore, we must get a balance and find out the most representative point of views in the database. Focus is the content you are concerned about. The chart also requires special attention to organize the content visibility and the hierarchy. The main function is not to filter, but to emphasize what is more important based on the information you just framed. Framing is the process of reducing confusions and clutters, but it doesn't highlight the theme. Focus can emphasize insights through graphics, such as colors, annotations, the size and locations, and make the elements more eye-catching.
The second part is the influence of editorial thinking. We will use two examples to explain and analyze the application of editorial thinking and how they affect design choice composed of data representation, interactive, annotation, color, and composition. The first example is the chart, the fall and rise of US inequality. Let us first look at the editorial thinking of this chart. In terms of angle, the chart shows the relationship between the bottom 19% and the top 1%, and the changes in their relationship over time. Use the angle of the relationship between the poor and the rich to reflect the distribution of wealth. In terms of framing, it is meaning the included time period. This chart was published in 2015 and shows the 2012 date, allowing the audience to see the newer date. The time period included in the chart is from 1917 to 2012. This reflects the time period of nearly a century to the audience to show the long historical dip. In terms of focus, the two timelines are displayed in different colors from the 1913th to the 1917th and after the 1918th to attract the attention of the audience in these two main periods. So how did the design choice of this chart be influenced by the editorial thinking. The angle determines that the chat uses a scarred chat that can better show the relationship. In addition, the framing also defines a chat to display data from 1917 to 2012. The role of interactivity is to be able to adjust the displayed data and the display methods. The framing makes this chat display data points year by year. The focus of this chart emphasizes to the audience the rising trend of inequality after falling, so two arrows and related headings are annotated. Similarly, the three different colors in the chart are also affected by the focus, because there are three patterns of flat, falling, and rising in the chart. In this example, the editorial thinking has limited influence on the chat, but the focus may still affect the design truth of the chat.
Now let me introduce the example 2. The example 2 is posted by New York Times website. This example is about why Peyton Manning's record will be hard to beat. There are 3 charts present this title. Here I will introduce all 3 charts to you. This is the first chart. Again, let's assess the editorial perspectives of angle, framing, and focus as demonstrated by this work. The first chart displays the angle of analyze, expressed as how have quantitative values broken down by category change over time. This analyze was relevant at the time due to the significance of Peyton Manning setting a new record for NFL quarterback touchdown passes. Inspired by this achievement, the question posed by this article overall is whether the record will even be beaten. But this analysis would be deemed insufficient to support the overarching inquiry as evidenced by next 2 further charts. Then come to the framing. The parameter set define the inclusion and exclusion framing related to the time period and the qualifying quantitative threshold. It is representative of the truth at the moment of production. The judgment of the 30 touchdown passes threshold would either be informed by knowledge of the sports or more likely influenced by the shape of the data for every quarterback, indicating that it was a logical cutoff value. Then we come to the focus. The chart emphasizes the record holder as well as the other current players in order to orientate the significance of the achievement and to highlight other contemporary players who could have a chance of pursuing their record. It also emphasizes previous record holders or noted players to show just how special the new record is. If you want to know the achievement of other players, their career lines and values come into focus through mouse-over-driven interactivity. Now I will use the same method and format to explain another 2 charts. Now let's come to the third chart. The framing and the angle of the second chart is similar to the first chart of example 2. In this chart, color is used to emphasize the previous record-holding players' career lines, with an illuminating background banding used to display the duration of their record standing. Value labels show the number of touchdowns achieved. Now let's come to the third chart of example 2. The framing and the focus of the third chart is similar to the first chart of example 2. But they still have the difference of angle in this chart. The difference from above is the time measure being about age, not year. Let's see this picture. The horizontal coordinates are marked with the ages of the sports players. Switching year for age is to continue pursuing the curiosity over how long Manning's record might last. Now I will introduce the influence of design choices from these 4 aspects. The angle and framing dimensions are hugely influential in the reasoning of chart type requirements. A line chart showing cumulative values for all the players was the most appropriate way of portraying this. Scatter plot can display the relationship angle between the measures of age and total touchdown passes. Using line chart to describe the inclusion of cumulative touchdown passes statistic can make the chart much more striking. This interactive labeling is a joint decision concept with annotation. Elsewhere, the decision to include permanent annotated labels in each chart of category and value provides emphasis in the first and third charts on the career achievements of Peyton Manning, the other current quarterbacks, and the previous record holders. Then let's move to the second chart. The second chart only labels the respective record holders, who are the subject of each separate display. For the aspects of color, the approach to creating focus is further achieved with colors. In the main chart, different players use different colors, such as the Peyton Manning use thick blue line, and other current players use normal blue line. The previous record holders or noted players use dark gray line. But the second chart is different from another two charts. The light blue colored banding shows the period of the record held by selected players down the years. The last influence is composition. The influence of the editorial decisions for focus would be seen through the sequencing of the charts. Given the rigid dimensions of space in which the article exists, the decision to order the charts in the way they are presented will have been informed by the desired narrative that was required to present analyze to support the articulated statement in the title.
Part 3 is going to introduce production cycle. It's starting with rationalizing design ideas and moving through to the development of a final solution. Here are several steps involved in the production cycle: conceiving idea, wireframing and storyboarding, prototypes and mockup, testing, refining and completing, and launching. First step. Conceiving idea is based on the desired options, fits best with the preparatory thinking. It varies from person to person. For some people, the best approach involves sketching with a pen, while others is best using the technology. Whichever approach suits you best. It's helpful to start translate your conceptual thinking into visual thinking. Second step, wireframing and storyboarding. Wireframing involves creating a low-fidelity illustration of the potential layout. There is no need to be too precise. You are simply mapping out what will be on your page, on your screen, such as charts and annotation, and how they will be arranged and what thing it will do, like the interactive function. Storyboarding is used when required deeper architecture like presentation and reports. Each individual wireframe field will be waved together by using a technique storyboarding. This maps out the relationship between all the fields of your content to form an overall visual structure. Third step, prototypes and mockup. It involves advancing the decision about the content and appearance of the proposed solution. This effectively offers a close representation of what the finished product may look like. We can see that on the right is a sketching picture, while the mockup designs on the left have more content, looks more like a finished version. Fourth step, testing. In this stage, the three principles of good visualization design that presented by the previous student offer a sensible high-level structure to guide this testing. First, trustworthy design testing. It is assessing the reliability of the work in terms of the integrity of its content and performance. For example, we can ask that, are there any design choices that could lead to misunderstandings? Second, accessible design testing. It's talking about how intuitive or sufficiently well explained the work is. For example, we can ask that, do viewer understanding how to read it or what order and encodings mean? Third, elegant design testing. To make our solution appealing in design, we can test that, are there any features which are redundant or superfluous design choice that are impeding the process of using the solution? Fifth step, refining and completing. Based on the outcome of the testing process, we may need to revisit some of the issues that have emerged and resolve them. We can edit our work, for example, by checking and enhancing preserved content, improving the consistency and coherence of the choices, and by double-checking the accuracy of every component. Sixth step, launching. In this stage, there are some situations that need to be considered. First, are you ready? After the solution is launched, you are no longer in control of how people will interpret your work and in what way they will truly use it. Then, what ongoing commitment exists to support the work? Will you need to revise, update, and re-release the project? Then, what is the work's shelf life? Does it have a point of expiry, after which it could be achieved or even killed?